Thank you for listening to Depictions Media Radio.
Welcome to Policy and Rights, the show about government policy and human rights.
All right. Welcome back to Policy and Rights here on Depictions Media Radio. I'm your host, Michael Clogs. So we're going to hear a bunch of things about food security. We're going to hear from Doug Ford in Ontario. He has some criticisms about some things that Jagmeet Singh, quote unquote, he's blowing smoke. We're also going to hear a lot about how, because of food insecurity, that our children are dying around the world. That one of the main things when we listened to the forum that was recorded from the United Nations press room is about extreme malnutrition and how some of it can be prevented, because some of this is not only due to things like climate change and famine, but it's also due to armed conflict, and that is totally preventable. So we do want to actually focus on that, how we can put ceasefires where they need to be, truces where they need to be, and find ways to get people to actually come to the negotiating table rather than picking up a gun and starting a war. So, some updates from the United Nations, from the United Nations Secretary General on occupied Palestine in Gaza marked the start of a new school year there. However, after 11 months of hostile and more than 600,000 students are deprived of access to a formal education. Simply put, the schools were blown up. Moving on, protect education from attack. Today, the International Day of Protect Education from Attack. In a message, the Secretary General says in recent years, dramatic increase of attacks on students, teachers, educational personnel, excuse me, in schools around the world, from Gaza to Sudan, Myanmar, Ukraine, Colombia, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and elsewhere, urge all countries to stand efforts to ensure children and young people can continue learning during a crisis after the fighting stops. I would say this back to the Secretary General: how are we going to prevent the fighting from starting to begin with? Protecting our children is the one of the more important things. There's still a continual problem, according to this, with the sexual violence in conflict. It's supposed to be banned, but it's still a problem, because they're soldiers in our conflict. Sometimes they're told that they have the right to. but this is what the special representative to the Secretary General on Sexual Violence and Conflict actually had to say. Her deep concern about recent published reports by the United Nations, including the Human Rights Office, describing a dramatic deterioration in conditions determined for Palestine men and women and children under Israeli custody since October 7th. The attacks and the escalation of hostilities in Gaza is various disturbing reports of sexual violence and other inhumane and degrading treatment could be amounted to as sexual torture perpetrated against Palestinian men and women. In Sudan, the United Nations for the Coordination of Humanitarian Efforts, or OSHA, is warning heavy rains and flooding have been impacting millions of people. In June, South Darfur, Red Sea, and River Nile, and other northern states, with the North Darfur state hit hardest. The UN partners on the ground are aiding who needs assistance. Last week, aid associations delivered life-saving therapeutic food and treatment to 6,000 children suffering from acute malnutrition, and distributed relief to tens of thousands of people. The severe flooding worsens an already dire humanitarian situation in Sudan. So why don't we go ahead and push forward, and we're going to listen to a statement from the UN's stakeout floor, and then we'll move forward from there with the statement about famine, climate change, and food insecurity around the world, and how it's going to affect our children and the future of humanity after that. And we'll end up with hearing Doug Ford as he criticizes Jagmeet Singh, saying that he is blowing smoke.
In person on the many challenges and actions being taken to respond to Sudan's severe humanitarian crisis. I have lost count the number of times I have been to Sudan as a government minister in the past, and now as Director General of the World Health Organization. Sudan is, for me, like home. I feel I belong here, and I have long respected the generosity, courage, and kindness of its people. And so this is why the situation in Sudan today saddens me very much. But I'm also sad to see that the crisis is not getting the attention it deserves by the international community. Yesterday, I visited a WHO-supported pediatric facility in Port Sudan, which provides life-saving care for infants suffering from acute malnutrition. I was shaken by the state of many of the tiny wasted children, and stunned by the harrowing accounts of their mothers who have been displaced multiple times due to the insecurity, thankfully at least to find refuge at this clinic. Today, Today, I visited the Shagia site where internally displaced people from various parts of the country gather and can access essential primary healthcare services are being delivered at another WHO-supported health facility. Sudanese are suffering through a perfect storm of crisis. Over 500 days of conflict, the largest level of displacement in the world, famine in some parts and risk of this in others, 25.6 million people, over half of Sudan's population, are expected to face high levels of acute food insecurity, disasters including flooding leading to dams bursting, disease outbreaks including cholera, malaria, dengue, and measles with the risk of mpox, multiple reported incidents of conflict-related sexual violence, and the near collapse of much of the country's health system. An estimated 70 to 80% of the health facilities not fully functioning across the country. WHO and our partners have been raising the alert on Sudan since the conflict began and working to meet some of the challenges. But spoke to many people in Sudan today, and they will tell you that the crisis is falling on deaf ears around the world. The international community has seemingly forgotten about Sudan and is paying little heed to the conflict tearing it apart with repercussions in the region. That's why I have come to Sudan. I'm here with my sister, Dr. Hanan Belkhi, the WHO Eastern Mediterranean Regional Director, to meet with the wide range of partners involved in the response and to call for urgent and scaled-up action to provide more resources, more access to humanitarian aid, and more security to health workers and the patients they serve. According to available data, Sudan's conflict has so far killed more than 20,000 people. This is an underestimate, by the way. Displaced over 10 million people inside the country and forced another 2 million to flee to neighboring countries. This is the largest internal displacement of people in the world today. The scale of the emergency is shocking, and as is the insufficient action being taken to curtail the conflict and respond to the suffering it's causing. This is manifesting itself in other ways, including insufficient levels of funding, far too many attacks on healthcare with the count already past 100, and attacks on other humanitarians and the people they serve, and the inability to secure unfettered cross-border and cross-line access for humanitarian relief. The conflict has left some 25 million people, more than half of the country's population, in dire need of humanitarian aid. Of this, 14.7 million require urgent assistance for a range of life-saving support, for which the humanitarian sector has requested $2.7 billion, which is less than half funded. But we must focus on all people in need, all 25 million people. And this means additional resources are required to meet their needs. And we're calling on the world to wake up and help Sudan out of the nightmare it's living through. And what do we need? We need an immediate ceasefire leading to a lasting political solution. The best medicine is peace. We need to protect health facilities, health workers, and patients. Health should not be targeted. We need sustained access to deliver supplies and aid. We need to scale up disease surveillance. In some states, we're blind to what is happening due to insecurity on the ground. We need to scale up vaccination coverage against cholera, polio, measles, and other diseases spreading in affected areas. And we need a massive increase in finances from the international community to scale up the response. If we do this, we will save millions of lives, predominantly children and women who are today living on the edge of survival. And we will provide the much needed calm that all people desperately need and deserve, and deliver hope for this proud country. We must not fail the people of Sudan. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Laura Miklic, and I'm the press officer at the Permanent Mission of the Republic of Slovenia to the United Nations. I am happy and pleased to be at your service during the busy month of September. It is with great honor to welcome you all here to this room and online via UN Web TV. And as you all know, Slovenia has just assumed its first presidency of the United Nations Security Council during its 2-year term on the Council. And today, from the Slovenian mission, we are joined by the representative of Slovenia to the United Nations Security Council, Ambassador Samuel Žbogar, as well as political coordinator Klemen Ponikvar. The ambassador will get us started by giving you a brief overview of the program of work for September, our plans and signature events. Then we will move to the Q&A session, during which I kindly ask everyone to introduce yourselves and present your media outlets. Also, I do know you are all fond of some trivia, so if you ever wondered if there has been an international day proposed by Slovenia, the right answer is yes, there has. This is World Bee Day, celebrated every year on May 20th. And now, without further ado, Mr. Ambassador and the President of the Security Council for the month of September, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Laura, and also good afternoon from my side. Very excited to be here today. And just to follow up on the quiz question, that's why we served honey today at the breakfast with the ambassadors of the Security Council. So I'm delighted to present the plans and the program of the presidency, Slovenian presidency of the Council for September. As you know, September is a very busy month, and it is a special honor. And this year even more so, since we have not only high-level week, but also Summit for the Future. And of course, that's an honor, but at the same time presents also a special challenge. It is the second time in our history that we are presiding the Council, to serve on the Council as elected members. But many things have changed since the time we served 25 years ago. Slovenia has changed, but also situation in international relations has changed a lot. But there is one thing that remains the same, and this is the responsibility of the Security Council for maintenance of peace and security, of international peace and security in accordance with the Charter. And this is also the central premise of our presidency, because time and again we see the urgent need to restore political will and trust to strengthen the global order that we have been building for decades, and that we are witnessing its erosion in the past years. And this is where our slogan also comes in, building trust, securing future. So as I said, we have a special honor to preside the Council in the month that is busy with the UN General Assembly and Summit for the Future. And this also led us in our consideration for the events that we are going to organize, the special events. So following broad consultations with the membership of the General Assembly and in accordance with expectations of the membership, we are planning 2 open debates. First open debate on the UN peacekeeping operations on the 9th of September, which will focus on the importance of the Security Council's unified political support for the peace operations, so that which will enable them to deliver on the mandates that they're given. The debate will also provide opportunity to reflect on how we can foster trust and rally support for peace operations, which will add to the broader discussions on the future of peacekeeping operations. So this will be a chance to reflect also on the future of the UN peacekeeping, given everything that has been happening to the US peacekeeping operations in the past years. And this is also to follow up on Secretary General request from the new Agenda for Peace, where he is calling on General Assembly and Security Council to reflect on the future of peacekeeping. The main signature event for our presidency will be during the high-level week on the 25th of September under the chairmanship of the Prime Minister of Slovenia, Robert Golob. And there are 2 main points that will be discussed at that meeting, which will be an open debate. One is building trust, recommitting to the purposes and principles of the UN Charter, respect to the international law, and implementation of Security Council resolutions. And second, securing the future, sharing the vision of the strengthened multilateral system that can effectively address matters of international peace and security with the UN at its core. The event is responding to the calls, the rising calls of the UN membership to strengthen the legitimacy and relevance of the Council. And this is, I think it's very important to stress that we have been, in the 8 months of our membership, we have been observing the erosion of both. Sierra Leone addressed the legitimacy issue. This is the membership issue, and we are going to address the relevance issue, meaning how much is Security Council at the driving seat of solving conflicts and problems. So the event follows our observation that we live in a world of grim statistics, with the highest number of ongoing conflicts, with the highest record high casualties among civilians, among humanitarians, among medical workers, among journalists. Conflicts have driven numbers of forcibly displaced people to record highs. I think over 100 million people are on the run. Despite abundance of wealth, we live in a time of hunger and protection crisis. And women and children bear the biggest burden. Climate change, water scarcity, and pollution are adding pressure on migratory movements and consequently on peace and security. So the world is becoming less stable, less peaceful, and with erosion of the respect for the rules, it is sliding into the state of disorder. We have not seen this high a need to rebuild trust, to secure the future ever before. And the precondition for rebuilding trust is full respect and compliance with the Charter of the United Nations. So this will be the guiding theme of the signature event on the 25th of September. And we want the Security Council members to try to reflect on that and try to answer that and try to self-reflect how we can do better as the Council. And thirdly, first two being the 2 open debates, The third, with a major threat of regional escalation of the conflict in the Middle East, it would be hard to find a more appropriate moment for the Security Council to meet the League of Arab States, the Arab Summit Troika, and the Secretary General of the League of Arab States. This high-level interactive informal dialogue will be on the 26th of September, and it will be chaired by Slovenian, our Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ms. Tanja Fajon. Now, let me go through country-specific issues that we are going to have on the agenda, or to present you the program of work, which was just approved this morning. So first, there will be a strong focus on the Middle East. First, we will continue to follow closely the situation in Gaza and in general between Israel and Palestine. So we scheduled, where already tomorrow we have a briefing following requests by Israel on one side and Algeria on the other side. So we will have a comprehensive briefing on the hostages as well as on the situation in Gaza and the Western Bank. And then we scheduled two briefings. First is on the implementation of the Resolution 2720 on the mechanism, humanitarian mechanism. Senior coordinator for humanitarian aid and reconstruction will brief us. This will be her last briefing according to Resolution 2720. And then we have a briefing also mandated on the Resolution 2334 on the illegal settlements, which will be chaired by the Minister of Foreign Affairs. We are encouraging members of the Council to have a forward-looking statements and reflections in their statements beyond the settlements and beyond just humanitarian aid. We would like to have member states start focusing on reconstruction, the way how that can be done and the role of the UN, and on settlements, how can we restart the process, the political process that will restart the political dialogue and eventually lead to the two-state solution. We also are planning two meetings on Syria, mandated meetings, one on chemical weapons, one on political situation. And we are planning one meeting on Yemen, regular meeting, monthly meeting on Yemen. SRG Special Envoy will brief. Then moving to Africa, we will have a meeting on quarterly update on the Security Council Committee 1591 concerning the Sudan or arms embargo on Darfur. And at the end of the month, we'll have also regular quarterly meeting on situation in Democratic Republic of Congo and briefing on consultation on MONUSCO. So these are the two already mandated meetings on Africa. We expect also meetings with regard to Sudan following requests by member states. And given the situation there, I think very much needed. Finally, the Council will address also the situation in Afghanistan, the regular brief by SRSG. We'll also have civil society briefer, where we want, we are encouraging member states to focus on women and girls and education of women and girls in Afghanistan, especially given the latest developments. And that meeting also will be chaired by the Minister of Foreign Affairs. Now, regarding the products, as they're called, that we expect to be adopted, One is on Haiti. The Haiti mandate for multinational force expires on the 2nd of October, so we expect the negotiations to take place during September and hopefully also be adopted at the end of September, the extension of the mandate. Second, there doesn't seem to be a renewal of the resolution 2240 with regard to Libya and prevention of smuggling of migrants across the Mediterranean. So that resolution will not be renewed in September, as we were informed today by the COPANs. The reporting for 2720 for Senior Coordinator for Humanitarian Aid and Reconstruction, the reporting ends at the end of September, according to the resolution. So we will conduct consultations with member states with regard to how we want to proceed in the future. And then we are also aiming at presidential statement for our signature event, Leadership for Peace, where we would hope the council members would recommit to provisions of and principles of the UN Charter. So let's see how that goes, but that's the aim that we have. Of course, we are prepared to have, and we have enough space in the program to have additional discussions as the member states will ask or as we will see it fit. We expect more discussions on Gaza, depending how the situation will evolve with regard to the ceasefire. We expect discussions on Ukraine and as I said, on Sudan as well, and possibly on some others too. So on thematic priorities, we will aim for a result-driven, action-oriented Security Council. That's why we also didn't fill the program too much, and we are leaving space for discussions. So that's why our thematic priorities, which is conflict prevention, protection of civilians, full, equal, meaningful, and safe participation of women in peace and security, and the interplay between climate and environment challenges and peace and security, will feature prominently through the Council discussions in September, but we will not organize specific discussions, debates just for that. We will, of course, continue to emphasize the importance of respecting international law, especially international humanitarian law by all states and parties in conflicts at all times and in all circumstances. In accordance with the shared commitments on the principles of women, peace and security, Slovenia will promote equal participation of women in the debates. Also among our briefers, we'll pay special attention to have a gender balance. And we will organize a media stakeout on shared commitments holders on WPS ahead of the Council discussion on Afghanistan. And the same we will do for joint pledges on climate, peace and security, where we also are planning a stakeout before the peacekeeping debate on the 9th of September. And of course, we will amplify also the work on prevention of conflicts as it derives from the joint call for action on the new agenda for peace issued by the three presidencies, Sierra Leone, Slovenia, and Switzerland. We will try to have press statements or elements for press after every consultations of the Council. If that would not be agreed, we will speak in national capacity, but after every consultations, we will speak one way or the other. So in conclusion, we are taking the presidency at a time of really high volatility in international relations, at a time of increasing fragile global security and unprecedented humanitarian needs. And we will need all the support we can get in the upcoming weeks from council members, from General Assembly members, from civil society. And we are confident that with this kind of backing, we can ensure that the Council will not be missing in action, but that actually will be able to effectively address pressing matters of international peace and security. We believe that only united Council can actually make a change, and we will strive for that. Thank you very much. I'm looking forward. Thank you very much. Good morning. Today, the Security Council convenes for an open debate on UN peacekeeping operations. France, Guyana, Japan, Malta, Mozambique, the Republic of Korea, Sierra Leone, Switzerland, the United Kingdom, the United States, and my own country, Slovenia, underscore the importance of a holistic approach to the climate, peace and security in the context of the UN peacekeeping. If the UN peacekeeping operations are to successfully fulfill their indispensable mandates, climate change considerations need to be taken into account. In this context, we take this opportunity to highlight three key messages. First, climate change and environmental degradation can exacerbate risk to international peace and security. Fragile and conflict-affected countries and communities are among the most vulnerable to the impacts of climate change. To enhance effectiveness of UN peacekeeping operations, it is essential to integrate data-based environment and climate security considerations, where appropriate, into risk assessments, monitoring, planning, reporting, and mandate implementation. Risk assessment and risk management should be inclusive, comprehensive, and gender responsive, so the needs of all affected communities are addressed and peacekeeping efforts are sustainable. Climate security advisors within the UN peacekeeping operations can play a significant role in mapping risks and providing valuable guidance to both missions and host authorities on practical actions that may be taken. We reiterate our call for the appointment of the UN Special Representative for Climate, Peace and Security to address the intersection of climate and conflict from an evidence-based point of view. Second, we believe UN peacekeeping operations can mitigate conflict-related risks that are exacerbated by climate change. By working with the host communities and UN country teams, they can contribute to the development of conflict-sensitive approaches to adaptation and mitigation responses on one hand, and climate-sensitive approaches to conflict management, prevention and peace building on the other, thereby reinforcing the benefits of climate action alongside peace and security efforts. Considerations of the adverse effects of climate change in the mandates of UNMISS, MINUSCA, MONUSCO and UNFICYP, missions comprising 75% of all currently deployed peacekeeping personnel, represents a decisive contribution towards these goals. And third, UN peacekeeping operations must adapt to ensure their own operational effectiveness and abilities to implement mandates tasks, including the protection of civilians. This requires careful assessment and planning. We emphasize the importance of the United Nations Department of Operational Support Strategy, and I quote, "The Way Forward, Environmental Strategy for Peace Operations 2023 to 2030. Good stewardship of resources ultimately contributes to the positive legacy in host countries as part of the wider UN efforts beyond missions deployment. Finally, we commend the troop and police contributing countries for their innovation, professionalism, and commitment in adapting their approach and capabilities to effectively operate in the environments increasingly impacted by climate change. We stand in front of you today, ready to forge ahead on our efforts to advance a systematic, responsive, inclusive, and evidence-based approach to climate, peace, and security in the context of the UN peacekeeping operations. Thank you.
The Chief Economist at the Food and Agriculture Organization, Arif Husain, the Chief Economist at the World Food Program, and Victor Aguayo, the Director of Child Nutrition and Development at UNICEF. And you see all of their faces on the screen right now. They are going to speak to you about the Global Report on Food Crises 2024. And I believe we'll start first with Máximo Torero. Please, you're on.
No, thank you. Thank you very much. And what we are going to do today is to give you an overview of the key findings from the mid-year update of the Global Report on Food Crisis 2024. Today, we have released this mid-year update of the Global Report on Food Crisis 2024, which draws on data available as of end of August 2024 to illustrate the evolution of acute food insecurity since the end of last year. The latest analysis shows that acute food insecurity remains persistently high, is becoming more extreme in some places and is spreading to new areas driven by conflict, El Niño impacts, and economic downturns. While there are reductions in food insecurity in some contexts, new or worse situations arise in others. The number of people facing or projected to face catastrophic phase IPC Phase 5 more than doubled from 705,000 in 5 countries and territories in 2023 to 1.9 million in 4 countries or territories in 2024. This is the highest in the global food crisis reporting and is mostly driven by conflict in the Gaza Strip and the Sudan. Intensifying conflicts in these 2 cases and also El Niño-induced drought and high domestic food prices drove an increase in the number of people facing high levels of acute food insecurity in 18 countries compared to 2023. 8 countries, Nigeria, the Sudan, Myanmar, Ethiopia, Zimbabwe, Malawi, Chad, and Yemen, experienced increases of around 1 million or more people in high levels of acute food insecurity. Let me now look into country by country. In the case of Sudan, famine IPC 5 is ongoing in internally displaced persons, site of Sam near the Fasher, North Darfur, and is expected to persist through October 2024. Many other areas throughout the Sudan are at risk of famine due to continued violence and limited humanitarian assistance. The conflict continues to drive a rapid deterioration of food security in the country, with around 26% more people estimated to face high levels of acute food insecurity during the June to September lean period compared to June 2023, reaching 25.6 million people classified in crisis or worse. This means IPC 3 or above.
A few words, of course, about children and about child wasting. Child wasting is the most life-threatening form of malnutrition in children. We often refer to it as acute malnutrition. Wasting remains very high among children living in countries that are experiencing food crisis, the countries that we are talking about today. This is due to the inability of families to access and to afford, as Arif was reminding us, nutritious foods for their children. It also is due to a lack of access to health, nutrition, water, and sanitation services. Needless to say that these threats grow very fast in conflict situations, which also reduce humanitarian access to the most vulnerable children, the most vulnerable women, and the most vulnerable communities. So our global report we are referring to today highlights a concerning increase of child wasting with critical levels in 8 countries, namely Cameroon, Chad, Djibouti, Haiti, Sudan, Uganda, Syria, and Yemen. My colleagues from FAO and WFP have described the nutrition situation in Gaza is one of the most severe that we have ever seen, one of the most severe food and nutrition crises in history. And it is important to remember that nearly half of Gaza's population who are suffering from this devastation are children. I was in Gaza last week, and I saw how months of war on civilians and severe restrictions to humanitarian response have led to a complete collapse of the food, health, and protection systems, with catastrophic consequences for children's nutrition. The fact is that the diets of children in Gaza, the most vulnerable to severe malnutrition, are extremely poor. We estimate that over 90% of children are eating at best 2 types of food per day, day in, day out, for weeks or months, in the context of toxic, very severe toxic stress and lack of access to safe water and sanitation. And we estimate that well over 50,000 children suffer from acute malnutrition and need immediate treatment. They need treatment now. I met doctors and I met nurses and I met nutrition workers who are implementing the programs that we support. I walked through markets and neighborhoods, or what's left of markets and neighborhoods, and I listened to the struggles of mothers and fathers to feed their children. And there is no doubt in my mind that the risk of famine and a large-scale severe nutrition crisis in Gaza is real and is happening. There is only one way to prevent it. We need a ceasefire, and we need a ceasefire immediately. And with a ceasefire, we need sustained and large-scale humanitarian access to the entire Gaza Strip. On this ceasefire and unrestricted humanitarian response, only this will allow families to access food, including specialized nutrition care for young children, nutrition supplements for pregnant women and breastfeeding mothers, and health, water, and sanitation services for the entire population. In Sudan, over 25 million people are affected by food insecurity, and this includes 3.7 million children who are experiencing severe acute malnutrition. I should say acute malnutrition. And these numbers continue to rise due to mass displacement, limited humanitarian access, disrupted health and nutrition services, and of course the onset of the lean season. So UNICEF is calling for unrestricted and large-scale humanitarian response for the early prevention, detection, and treatment of acute malnutrition among the most vulnerable children, particularly children under 5 years of age, and the mother, whose lives are under threat due to these multiple escalating crises. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'll now turn over the floor to reporters for questions. And when you're asking, please specify which of the 3 speakers you're directing your question to. All right, Edie.
Thank you very much on behalf of the UN Correspondents Association for doing this briefing. A couple of questions. First, following up, aside from the conflicts in Gaza and Ukraine and Sudan, are they the main drivers for these sharp increases? Or is climate also a major driver? And why don't you do that, and then I'll go ahead. Maybe Máximo?
No, yes, very quickly. As I mentioned, El Niño has had significant impacts in several countries in Africa, which has also increased the numbers. But the biggest numbers are coming from Gaza and Sudan. But clearly, what we are observing, for example, in Southern Africa, El Niño induced drought led to widespread harvest failure between 2023 and 2024 and significant deaths of livestock over large parts of Angola, Botswana, Lesotho, Madagascar, Malawi, Mozambique, Namibia, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. And this is also affecting the lean season for November 2024. In West Africa and the Sahel, levels of acute food insecurity has also increased because of this. And Nigeria has the largest increase in the number of people facing high levels of acute food insecurity, also driven by inflation, food inflation, and is also followed by Chad. So it's climate, inflation, but the biggest impacts are in Gaza and Sudan, as it has been mentioned.
And does this, I know the study compares 2023, and is it part of 2024 or not or is it only 2022, 23? I'm not quite sure.
The data goes until August 2024. So it compares with the last report that was at the end of the year in December, and it compares up to August 2024, where we look at the updates in that sense.
Thank you.
Find the housing that meets their needs. We are desperate for a more diverse more diverse mix of housing in our community. One of the necessary conditions for getting that housing is expanding our drinking water infrastructure. We have a strong financial plan in place to do just that, with a focus on ensuring that growth pays for growth. For the portion of infrastructure that benefits existing users, we are also exploring ways to lessen the burden on them. That's why we are excited by the news we are about to hear today, and I want to thank Premier Ford and Minister Surma for traveling to Prince Edward County this morning to make this announcement in person. I'll now turn the mic to Minister Surma.
Thank you very much, Mayor Ferguson, for the introduction, and good morning, everyone. I am pleased to be here in Prince Edward County today with Premier Ford and local representatives to share some exciting news about the progress our government is making to build Ontario and unlock new housing for communities across the province. Infrastructure connects people to their families and friends and the essential services that they rely on every day. To keep pace with the province's fast-growing population, we know that we must maintain and expand Ontario's infrastructure to protect Ontario's world-class standard of living. That's why our government is making targeted investments to deliver our key infrastructure priorities, like building more homes, expanding transit, and improving roadways in communities across Ontario. In fact, we're investing up to $1.6 million right here in Prince Edward County towards the King Street Corridor redevelopment project, which will allow the City of Quinte West to build reliable and accessible sidewalks and roadways for pedestrians, cyclists, and vehicles. We know that building Ontario also means building more homes, and new homes should not be built or approved without access to clean water, wastewater, and stormwater systems. In fact, there are communities across the province that would like to approve new housing, but need to address their water capacity issues first. We heard from municipalities that replacing, repairing, and expanding pipes and treatment facilities was a huge financial burden as they looked for ways to build more homes. That's why we are providing municipalities with more than $1.9 billion in funding through our infrastructure program to build housing-enabling infrastructure. We awarded $970 million to 54 projects in 60 communities through the first intake of our Housing-Enabling Water Systems Fund to help municipalities develop, repair, rehabilitate, and expand local water infrastructure systems to unlock more housing. In response to the high demand for this program, our government is investing an additional $250 million to launch a second intake, allowing more municipalities to apply for funding to support their local water infrastructure needs and enable even more housing opportunities. We are currently accepting applications until November 1st under the second intake, and I encourage all eligible municipalities to apply. While water infrastructure is essential in getting more homes built, we know that other infrastructure upgrades are also necessary to accommodate growth. That is why we recently launched the Housing Enabling Core Servicing Stream. This stream will provide municipalities with $400 million to build, maintain, and repair core assets like roads, bridges, and culverts to connect new homes with reliable roadways and other municipal assets. Applications for funding under this stream are also now open and will be closing on October 18th. Investing in key infrastructure projects in our local communities means investing in people and families to create a stronger, more prosperous Ontario for generations to come. And together with our municipal partners, we will get the job done. Thank you, and now I will invite the Premier to the podium.
Great. Well, good morning, everyone, and it's great to be back here in beautiful Prince Edward County alongside Minister Surma. And, you know, folks, if you've never been through Prince Edward County, I encourage you to come by, you know, especially during the fall. The leaves are going to be changing, and maybe pick up a bottle of wine somewhere in one of the vineyards. But what a beautiful town, great people. And before I begin, I also want to acknowledge and welcome Mayor Ferguson and all the city councillors. Thank you for doing a great job, councillors, and the mayor, as well as Nadia from the Residential Civil Construction Alliance of Ontario, Durate from the Prince Edward County Chamber of Commerce. You're all doing an incredible job, so thank you so much. Prince Edward County, like so many other communities across this province, is growing. And we need to build more homes to support the growth that we've seen over the last number of years. We recognize, however, that homes don't get built, as Minister Surma was saying, without the necessary infrastructure to support it. That's why in our most recent budget, we included an investment of more than $1.8 billion to help municipalities get shovels in the ground for infrastructure projects that will help build more homes faster. And everyone wants industry to come and jobs to be created. Well, we have some big announcements hopefully coming down the pipe in the next couple months. But people that get employed here, a big company that might employ 1,000 or 2,000 people, they need homes. And last month, we announced that the first round of investments from the Housing Enabling Water System Fund, a total of $970 million, will help build more than 500,000 homes across 60 municipalities. So today, I'm thrilled to announce that this first round of funding includes up to $18.3 million for Prince Edward County to help build a new Wellington Regional Water Treatment Plant. This is an absolute game changer. This investment, this new facility, will provide clean water to the communities of both Wellington and Picton for decades to come. And it will help the county get nearly 4,000 new homes built, keeping the dream of home ownership alive for more families. And Mayor Ferguson, we're going to keep working with you and your council, not just to build more housing, but to make sure Prince Edward County has the infrastructure it needs as it grows. Unlike previous governments that didn't plan for the future, we've embarked on the largest capital expansion in the country's history to support growth in communities across the province. As Minister Surma mentioned, we're investing in the King Street Corridor redevelopment project, and work is now complete on the Bay of Quinte Skyway Bridge rehabilitation project. We're spending $63 million on that, which serves as an important connection to Highway 401, both for the residents of Prince Edward County and for the hundreds of thousands of tourists who visit each and every single year. We're moving ahead on widening 401 from Pickering to Belleville to keep people and goods moving. In education, we're investing $16 billion to build, repair, and expand schools, including the recently opened East Hill Elementary School in Belleville. In healthcare, we've gotten shovels in the ground on the new Prince Edward County Memorial Hospital in Picton. This incredible healthcare facility will offer cutting-edge equipment and services, including a 24-hour emergency department, connecting Bay of Quinte community members to the care they need closer to home. Work is also underway to expand health services at the new Belleville and Quinte West Community Health Center. And we're supporting Quinte Health as major improvements are being made to the emergency department building at Trenton Memorial Hospital. Friends, we're building the homes, the hospitals, the schools, roads and highways, and other critical infrastructure Prince Edward County needs to attract investments and new jobs and to support the region's population's growth. We're building the infrastructure that Prince Edward County needs, that the region needs to reach its full potential. Mayor, Council, I want to thank you for your partnership, and we look forward to continuing working with you and Council to build Prince Edward County. Once again, thank you for joining us, and may God bless the people of Ontario. Thank you.
We will now, go to reporters' questions. Reporters, please line up at the mic behind me. Please identify yourselves by name and outlet. It'll be one question, one follow-up. First question.
Good morning, Premier. Mark McAllister from City News.
Hey, Mark. How you doing?
Good, thank you. Good. How might the federal NDP decision to reverse its backing for the Liberals at this point impact your decision on a possible early election?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, MP Singer he's just blowing smoke. There's nothing more important to these greedy politicians than collecting a pension. And he was elected in October 2019, and October 19th, 2019. And I'll be floored, and I'll stand up here and apologize to all the greedy politicians if he calls the election early. But let's face it, he wants his pension. He's not going anywhere until October, let's say 20th, 2025, because there's him and a whole bunch of other politicians that want to grab the taxpayers' money. So my bet is he's not doing anything. He's just putting on a big show like he has for the last number of years there.
Based on your answer, does that mean you won't be calling an early election next year?
Well, again, we haven't made that decision yet. I'll tell you, we aren't calling an election this year, and we're going to make sure that we continue with prosperity and creating jobs and opportunities for the people of Ontario. We're going to continue giving opportunities to regions, just like this one we're here today announcing the Water Enabling Infrastructure Fund.
This show has been produced by Depictions Media. Please contact us at depictions.media for more information.